cure for fools.
Once a Vandal Gunner, always a Vandal Gunner. And I'm not afraid to use it.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. "30 seconds until minions spawn.
When you get bigger, you're carrying me.
Minions have spawned.
Where to next? not the time. I know, I'm going. Later, stop pouting.
Mind the trap.
Are all dragons this heavy? Scary what comes out of it.
First blood.
Show them what you can do.
Open and shut.
That'll work. When do dragons start flying? I really hope that was your stomach.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
I broke you out of that egg and I can stuff you. Tell me you don't have keys. Such a waste. Feel this.
Think again.
Enemy has been slain.
And what did we learn? together, Riddle.
An enemy has been slain.
Look at me like that. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Not the biggest dragon, but the best. Is there anything you don't eat? Someone's on their best behavior. Well, you made him angry.
An enemy has been slain. Shut down.
Why are you slimy?
Pay no attention to the trap.
An ally has been slain.
That
Enemy
wasn't
double
exactly
kill.
how that was supposed to go. I'll scratch your tummy later. Keep dreaming, buddy. Get that. Here you go. Hey, no chewing on me.
An enemy has been slain. Enemy killing spree. An ally has been slain.
Aw, look at
Boom.
that.
Headshot.
fall.
Starting obedience training. And what did we learn? Fire solves most problems.
An ally has been slain.
Don't look at me like that. It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Shut down. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Let's find you a snack.
Your team has destroyed a turret. slain. An enemy is dominated. An ally has been slain.
Another down. I'm getting good.
Your turret has been destroyed.
And what did we learn? Don't look at me like that.
Shut
Another
down.
time.
Enemy double kill. Enemy triple kill. An ally has been slain.
Wasn't exactly how that was supposed to go. Where to next?
An ally has been slain. destroyed. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
And what did we learn?
An ally has been slain. Your inhibitor has been destroyed.
Powering up. I know, I'm going. We'll eat later. Stop pouting. Are all dragons this heavy? Scary what comes out of you.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
When do dragons start flying? I really hope that was your stomach. Do I know how to accessorize? Time for a little snack break. Hup. Hup. Hup.
Your turret has been destroyed. An ally has been slain. Enemy double kill.
Dragon's
Shut down.
Get cooked.
An ally has been slain. Your turret has been destroyed. Your inhibitor has been destroyed. Your turret has been destroyed. Your turret has been destroyed. Your turret has been destroyed. Your inhibitor has been destroyed. Defeat.
cure for fools.
Once a bandle gunner, always a bandle gunner. Who's a good bringer?
Welcome to Summoner's Rift. "30 seconds until minions spawn."
I broke you out of that egg and I can stuff you back in.
Minions have spawned.
Where to next? Scary what comes out of you. Let's find you a snack.
First blood.
Are all dragons this heavy? All right, you deserve it. Hup. We'll eat later. Stop pouting.
An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
You're stuck with me now. Got him. Just try to get between us. Could stop him, but I won't. I really hope that was your stomach. Burn. Hey, no chewing on me. Time for a little snack break. Hup. Hup. Get into the sugar again. Tell me you don't have fleas. When do dragons start flying?
You have slain an enemy. Ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Is there anything you don't eat?
Great.
I'll scratch your tummy later. There you go. Aw, look at your little arms. Smoke it out. Fly, fly. All right, you deserve it. Hup. Do I know how to accessorize? Now we're good. We're in this together, Riddle. Why are you slimy?
Look out!
An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. An ally has been slain. Rampage. An enemy has been slain. Double kill. An ally has been slain.
This is so not the time. Little snack break. Hup. 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 No, I'm going. When you get bigger, you're gonna
Unstoppable.
Not the biggest dragon, but the best.
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Training.
An ally has been slain. fall. Your team has destroyed a turret.
Where to next? Roast 'em.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Enemy rampage.
That'll work.
Your turret has been destroyed.
Steve used flame retardant as a challenge.
An enemy has been slain. You have slain an enemy.
It's scary what comes out of you.
An enemy has been slain. An ally has been slain.
Let's find you a
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Are all dragons this heavy?
An ally has been slain.
You really are a handful. Willie Waiter, stop out.
Not today, nerd. Not today.
Stop with me now.
Double kill.
hope that was your stomach. There you go.
Your team has destroyed a turret. An ally has been slain. An enemy has been slain. Shut down.
Tell me you don't have fleas. Don't look at me like that.
Killing spree.
In my sight. Stay alert. When do dragons start flying?
Slain an enemy. Shut down. An ally has been slain.
Playing field.
And what did we learn?
An enemy is unstoppable. Your turret has been destroyed. Double kill.
Someone's on their best behavior.
Killing spree. has been slain.
That's crazy. Good job anyways. It's fun times and stuff.
That wasn't exactly how that was supposed to go. Scratch your face.
Magic cannot be caged.
One more time. You need a back. Aw, look at your little arms. Do I know how to accessorize? Fly and fry. Ouch.
Your turret has been destroyed.
We're in this together. Why are you smiling? Time for a little snack break.
destroyed an inhibitor. An enemy has been slain. Oh, triple kill. Shut down. Victory!
Good team. Pretty fine. How's your streaming going? It is what it is. First Prince.
remember this.
Once a Vandal Gunner, always a Vandal Gunner.
Hey, folks, a lot coming up on today's show. Hunter Biden, crack addict, former crack addict, but it appears something is still ripping through his system because he just did a wild 3-hour interview. What does that say about the Democratic Party? Plus, we'll get to Stephen Colbert, the fallout from his firing, and a couple of actually quite important criminal cases. But first, we are celebrating a decade of the Daily Wire, 10 years of fighting the culture war and building something real. How are we celebrating? We are growing fast. More members, more shows, new voices like Isabel Brown, new documentaries like Journey to the UFC, the Joe Pyfer story premiering this Friday. Not just a fight doc, a blueprint for becoming unstoppable. From nothing to UFC stardom, through trauma, pain, no excuses. Our members get it all first. The announcements, the first looks, the full truth. No censorship or hidden agenda, just common sense, and a community that actually has it. Don't sit this out. Celebrate a decade of the Daily Wire. Go to dailywireplus.com and join today. Okay, so the big story of the day is Hunter Biden. He's back. Now, why does that matter? There are a couple of reasons it matters. One is that Hunter Biden is a stand-in for his father. When Hunter talks, Hunter is speaking for Joe Biden. And when he speaks for Joe Biden, he is speaking for, believe it or not, the establishment wing of the Democratic Party in some interesting and weird ways. And so what he has to say about politics is sort of relevant. Also, Hunter Biden's exposure of the entire left for the fraud that it is because of his father is quite incredible. And it is worthwhile to remember that Hunter Biden, along with Joe Biden, was part of that inner coterie of people surrounding Joe who knew that Joe was unhealthy, mentally unwell, and all the rest, and who left him in place because they were essentially playing at the presidency. This is something that Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson have reported in their book Original Sin, talking about who was the actual president of the United States for several years. So when you listen to Hunter, you should understand Hunter Biden was at least partially the actual president of the United States for several years, and so that makes this interview important. So we begin this interview, discussing this interview, with his thoughts on the election. So first he says the reason that his dad completely collapsed as a human during that debate with Donald Trump, the most famous debate now in modern American history, the reason for that is because he says that his father was on Ambien.
I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, and the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired. You give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights. And it feeds into every story that anybody wants to tell.
So it was the Ambien. It was not that his father was not sentient. So first of all, who gives an 81-year-old man Ambien on a flight knowing what the predictable results of that will be hours later? I mean, there are just certain materials that you take when you fly. Now, if you take too much melatonin, you can be zonked the next day. Ambien will absolutely... So they gave him to that, like the day before or the night before the debate. First of all, if that's true, it shows that his advisors were in some ways sandbagging him. But beyond that, it's obviously not true. That is the reason why Joe Biden has been in a state of collapse for several years. At this point, Hunter admits that Nancy Pelosi is the person who drove Biden out of the race. Here he was.
You know who did not want Kamala Harris to be president and did not want her to be the nominee? Nancy Pelosi didn't want her to be. None of Nancy Pelosi's people wanted her to be. They wanted an open convention. They wanted a floor fight. They wanted I don't know what the hell they wanted, but they wanted to be the ones to anoint whoever they were going to anoint to become the next president of the United States.
Who do you think that would have been?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't have any idea. All I know is that they definitely did not want Kamala Harris. And again, which undermined her, which undermined the campaign.
I mean, look at Hunter trying to defend Kamala right there, saying it wasn't her fault that she lost. It was Pelosi who drove Biden out of the race. He also took some side swipes at people like George Clooney and David Axelrod and the Pod Save America bros, basically saying all of these people, they threw Joe Biden out of the race. They shouldn't have. Okay, so a lot of this is defensive play from Hunter, who, again, was the actual president, along with Jill, probably, of the country for several years, and predictably, he's pissed about it.
And you know what George Clooney did? Because he sat down, I guess, because he was like given a blessing by the Obama team or the Obama people and whoever else, and David Axelrod and whoever the else, just to go, okay, yeah, you know what? We are going to insert our judgment over yours. Me, and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama, and that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod, and David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who've made $40, $50 million off the Democratic Party. Him and everybody around him. I don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not an actor. He is I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. What do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to undermine the president at a time in which, by the way, what do people care about the most?
Yeah, so I'm just going to point out here that Hunter Biden would make a better 2028 candidate than Joe Biden made a 2024 candidate. I'm here for him dunking on all of his erstwhile Democratic friends. Hunter, of course, took the opportunity also to defend himself against charges that, for example, his art business was a scam on behalf of the Biden family, which it pretty clearly was. No one buys Hunter Biden finger paintings these days for $500,000 a pop.
You know how many stories the New York Times wrote about my art?
How many?
I don't know, like a dozen? To what end? I mean, really, to what end? I mean, at the time that they were writing about my art, Jared Kushner was in Saudi Arabia after being the head of the Middle Eastern Policy Group for the White House and covering for the leader of Saudi Arabia in the murder of Khashoggi, collecting $2.1 billion investments. When he was doing that, and they were selling golden sneakers and Bibles to people off their donor list, the New York Times was still writing stories about the legitimacy of me deciding that I wanted to be a painter or not.
Well, I mean, there was an election going on, as you may have noticed, and the fact is that the President of the United States, many people suspected, was the beneficiary of these sort of strange coincidences around the sales of your pseudo-art. More from this insane interview with Hunter Biden in just a moment. First, the Trump administration is doing an awful lot of hard work right now, moving the big, beautiful bill forward, foreign policy, all the rest, but there's a lot of chaos out there, and it's difficult for them to take into account your personal finances when they're trying to right the country's wrongs. You have to do that, and that's why I recently bought more gold myself from Birch Gold. Over the past 12 months, gold value has surged by 40%, driven by central banks purchasing record quantities and global instability reaching levels not seen in decades. Luckily, Birch Gold has made owning physical gold remarkably straightforward, allowing you to easily convert existing retirement accounts, like IRAs or 401ks, into tax-sheltered gold IRAs, or simply purchase gold for secure home storage. It's a really easy process. When I went to buy gold, I simply called them up, I walked through all of my questions, I got their advice, and then I was able to just get what I needed. Just text my name, Ben, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, with only useful information. An A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Tens of thousands of happy customers, including me. Take control of protecting your savings today with my friends over at Birch Gold. Text the word Ben to 989898. Also, summer is here, and nothing beats firing up that grill with family and friends, but here's something that is, at the very least, very surprising. Over 85% of grass-fed beef in U.S. stores is actually imported. That meat on your barbecue, it could be from anywhere. Questionable safety standards, hidden additives, you can't even pronounce. And that is why my producers have switched over to goodranchers.com for all of their summer grilling. Every single cut, beef, chicken, pork, 100% American sourced, born and raised right here on local family farms. No antibiotics ever, no added hormones, no seed oil, just pure, clean meat that tastes incredible.
Oh my gosh, we
on
got
the
such
grill.
a
Here's the best part.
freaking diff
It's delivered
on
straight
this
to your
crap.
door, so no more last-minute grocery runs when you are prepping for that weekend cookout. My producers, again, have been eating the Good Rancher, like, a lot. And not only that, producer Savvy has basically been feeding her chunky toddler, Mikey, twice a week on Good Ranchers, which is why that kid is a beast. He's like a middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. With summer grilling season in full swing, use my code BEN to get $40 off, plus get your pick of free meat for life when you subscribe to any Good Ranchers box. That's free Wagyu burgers, hot dogs, bacon, or chicken wings in every box for life with your subscription. Again, just go to goodranchers.com, use promo code BEN at checkout to get an extra $40 off and free meat for life, because the moments that matter deserve meat that's made right and raised in America. Good Ranchers, American meat delivered. Hunter Biden also suggested that he was totally qualified to be on Burisma's board. Again, one of the kind of seamy realities about the last election cycle is some of it was about Joe Biden's age. A lot of it was about a widespread perception, correct, of the Biden family's absolutely deep and abiding corruption. Here is Hunter now denying that he had been put on the board of Burisma for any political reason, which of course is absolutely ridiculous. He had no experience in the energy sector. He couldn't point out Ukraine on a map, and suddenly he was on the board of the Ukrainian energy firm.
A lot of it had to do with money. 100%. You know? I had an organization that was willing to pay me for a service that I was 100% qualified to do. I went to Yale Law School. I served on dozens of boards before this. Was an expert in corporate governance. I have a encyclopedic knowledge of the region. I had served on a major infrastructure company's board and had done work in global aid relief throughout the entire world and had an enormous list of connections of my own. And I was qualified to be on that board.
So actually, he was doing it, you know, because he was really good at it. It had nothing to do with his last name being Biden. By the way, that's a reversal for Hunter, who openly admitted a few years ago that he would not have been on the Burisma board, except for the fact that his last name was Biden. The last part of this particular interview, the sort of Hunter Biden defending himself, that got amusing when he started making the argument that crack is somehow safer than alcohol, which is a hell of an argument here.
Does crack cocaine make you act any differently? No. Is it safer than alcohol? Probably. People think of crack as being dirty. It's the exact opposite. When you make crack, what you're doing is you're burning off all the impurities so that it combines with the sodium bicarbonate, which makes it smokable.
The prelude to Hunter Biden's version of Breaking Bad, where he actually like goes in and starts distributing again. I love that he's making this argument, but now put all this aside. Put the Biden administration aside for a second. Put aside the inherent corruption, the fact that Joe Biden was dead for several years and that his family was essentially running the government. Put all of that aside. If you see Hunter as a stand-in for the sort of Joe Biden moderate wing of the Democratic Party, things start to get kind of interesting, because Hunter Biden also spoke here about policy, and there are two particular issues where Hunter Biden put specific focus, and those two issues were on illegal immigration and Israel. And these are the issues where Democrats are completely at odds with the American people, but they will not let it go. They're more likely to let go of the trans issue than they are to let go of illegal immigration, open borders, as well as the sort of new thing of the moment, which is the idea that Israel is the great victimizer in the Middle East and the Palestinians are the great victims in the Middle East, including Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, Islamic Jihad, and all the rest. And this is sort of fascinating, because if you're trying to figure out the direction of the Democratic Party, if you're trying to get out the divining rod and determine which direction the Democratic Party is going to move into, the sort of more moderate side or the more radical side, you have to understand the moderates are already caving to the radicals. They're already caving to the radicals. They may separate off from the trans stuff because it's been so wildly unsuccessful for them, but the root cause of the Democratic Party is belief that America is a great victimizer in the world. America's allies are great victimizers in the world, and therefore America ought not have borders, and also America, her foreign policy should essentially be to abandon any strong ally as long as it is beneficial to the Democratic Party to do so. There's sort of third worldism that is set in the Democratic Party. I don't mean in the radical wing of the Democratic Party. I mean the mainstream Joe Biden wing, because Hunter Biden, remember, was Joe Biden's brain, at least the part of it that was semi-functional. So here was Hunter Biden going off on President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration.
Am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. You. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you have
That's
food on your
crazy. This guy's
table?
such an idiot.
Who do you think washes your dishes?
What a
Who do you think
racist
does your garden? Who do you think is here
but the
by the
best.
sheer
He thinks he
just
sounds
grit
kind.
and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance. And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are criminals. White men in America are 45 more times likely to commit violent crimes than an immigrant.
And so, he actually concludes that statement that white men are more likely to commit crimes than immigrants by suggesting that we should actually force El Salvador to send back illegal immigrants. Which is funny, since the ones we're sending to El Salvador are by and large people with actual criminal records.
These guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to leave. I say, you, how are we getting those people back from in El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the president of El Salvador and say, you either send them back or I'm going to invade. It's a crime what they're doing. He's a dictator thug. From Kelly or Trump? Both.
Now again, the reason this is important is because Hunter was Joe Biden's partially functioning brain during the administration. This is the Democratic Party perspective on illegal immigration. America ought to
Freaking
be
killer,
an
stupid.
open borders country because
crap.
unfettered immigration
That is crazy.
without any sort of real security,
so silly.
without any sort of concern about cultural assimilation is an effective good. That is something the Democratic Party deeply believes, and as we start discussing 2028 candidates, understand there will not be a Democrat on the stage who significantly calls for border security. It will not be a thing. It's not just with regard to immigration. The Democratic Party also realizes that the energy in its party is very much on the side of third worldism. The sort of Zoran Mamdani belief that the third world has been victimized by America and her allies, and therefore the third world must have her revenge. So, for example, Hunter Biden was talking about the dramatic increase in anti-Semitism under his father's administration, which is certainly a thing that happened. And he says the real reason for that is because of the Israelis. The Israelis created the anti-Semitism. So, in other words, after Hamas murdered 1,200 Jews in Israel and took 250 hostage, a couple of dozen of whom are still being held hostage after a year and a half, that it's Israel's fault that the anti-Semitism broke out.
I think it's probably the most prescient thing that's been written about this in at least many months. Tom Friedman wrote a thing, is that the worst thing that's happened to the people, the Jewish people, is the Israeli government. Jewish people globally, the threats to their lives, the anti-Semitism that it has generated.
The worst thing that's happened to the Jewish people is the Israeli government, according to Hunter Biden. And then he brags about how his father tried to hamstring Israel in its pursuit of getting back its hostages and ending Hamas, an actual, honest-to-God, American State Department-designated terrorist group in the Gaza Strip.
He took away the bunker-busting bombs from the Israelis. He tried to curtail Netanyahu's thing. He forced Netanyahu to open up shipping lanes and aid lanes at the Rafah crossing to be able to get food aid in. He put pressure over and over and over again. And now, by the way, that is not even remotely happening. What is happening is that they were bombing food lines. There's no one in there to be able to record it. The World Food Program, the UNHCR, none of the aid organizations are able to make it in. Doctors Without Borders no longer can make it in. There have been more journalists killed in this war in Gaza than in any other war combined. And nobody's doing anything about it.
I mean, this is propaganda on behalf of Hamas, we should point out here. Because the reality is that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, which has been actually facilitating the entry of aid into Gaza, as we'll discuss a little later on in the show, has been denying Hamas access to the food, which is why Hamas is shooting people, and then attempting to insinuate itself among the population in order to shoot at Israeli soldiers who then respond. That is the real thing that's been happening in the Gaza Strip. But again, these are the parts of the Democratic base that the Democrats are trying to woo. It is very important to them, illegal immigration and third worldism.
We'll eat later.
There
Stop
is
hurting.
no systemic immunity for the Democratic Party against their radical base. It does not exist. So if you think they're going to nominate somebody who's quasi-moderate in 2028, wrong you are. It is not going to happen. This is a party that is an empty vessel that has no direction forward. The supposed moderates in its own coalition are completely unable to argue their way out of a paper bag against the so-called progressives in their coalition.
Enemy double
So
kill.
James Carville, his solution, James Carville, is basically that the Democratic Party ought to ignore its own agenda and simply just rip on Trump.
So done.
That's
So
the
dumb
only
of me.
way to somehow appeal to moderates in America, according to James Carville. Quote, constipated, leaderless, confused, a cracked-out clown car, divided. These are words I hear my fellow Democrats using to describe our party as of late. The truth is, they're not wrong. The Democratic Party is in shambles. Zoran Mamdani's victory in New York City's Democratic mayoral primary wasn't an isolated event. It represents an undeniable fissure in our political soul. We are divided along generational lines. Candidates like Mr. Mamdani are impatient for an economic future that folks my age are skeptical can be delivered.
And what
We are
did we
divided
learn?
along ideological lines. A party that is historically allegiant to the state of Israel is at odds with a growing faction that will not look past the abuses in Gaza and the West Bank. From Medicare for all purists to Affordable Care Act reformists, the list goes on and on. The Democratic Party is steamrolling toward a civilized civil war. It's necessary to have it. It's even more necessary, says James Carville,
Someone's on their
to
best
delay it.
behavior.
Basically, hope for a savior. Quote, the only thing that can save us now is an actual savior, because a new party can be delivered only by a person. See Barack Obama in 2008 and Bill Clinton in 1992. No new party or candidate has a chance to break through until November 2026. Until then, we must run unified in opposition to the Republicans and gain as many House seats as possible. So that's his plan. His plan is, yeah, there's a civil war, and you can hear James Carville, supposed moderate, is already caving to Zoran Mamdani and the progressives. This is the biggest problem for the Democratic Party. Hunter Biden, again, is a supposed representative of the moderate Joe Biden wing of the Democratic Party, and there are zero issues
Rampage.
in which he can argue against the far left of his party. It just doesn't exist. And so no matter how many Democrats emerge from the woodwork to try and argue against this, they keep getting shouted down. Representative Adam Smith, Democrat of Washington, he's trying to dissociate from the Mamdanification of the Democratic Party. He says the mayor of New York isn't the leader of the party or anything.
What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, look, the mayor of New York has never, ever been the leader of the Democratic Party. What we need to focus on is the message. I was listening to Senator McCormick. They just voted for a budget, the Republicans did, that added $3.5 trillion to the debt.
The Democratic Party, again, has no systemic immunity to any of this. And this is why, for example, AOC is actually in quite good shape to be a Democratic nominee in 2028. I'm telling you, they're selling her short. Anybody who's telling you AOC is not a serious candidate is just wrong about this. Now, again, she is going to continue to stump for open borders. The biggest question for Democrats is not a question of candidates. It's a question of how well the country is doing. If the economy continues to do really well under President Trump, Democrats are going to have a very difficult time going forward. If the economy were to sink, AOC is incredibly well-placed, and even her insane open borders perspective is going to be swallowed by a large percentage of the population seeking revenge against a Trump Republican Party if the economy goes the other way. And that's just the way economics works in the United States. Whichever is the party in power, if the economy goes south, gets blamed for it. Here is AOC, who is mirroring exactly what you heard Hunter Biden saying about illegal immigration just a moment ago.
There are consequences to ripping up law-abiding, dutiful, undocumented people from their country. There are consequences.
Now, AOC has been attempting, as you can see from her policy, to moderate in certain particular ways to keep one foot in sort of every camp. She doesn't want to be labeled with the full-scale Zoran Mamdani, Ilhan Omar anti-Semite brush. And so instead, what she's doing is one time she cried when they refunded Iron Dome in Israel. This week, she voted against cutting U.S. funding for Israel completely. There was a bill that was on the floor to completely cut the funding. She voted against it. And her office in Westchester Square in the East Bronx was splattered in red paint and adorned with a sign reading AOC funds genocide in Gaza. But this, again, is a problem for the Democratic Party, is that in the end, they are not going to be able to repel the far left. They are turning into a far left party. No one's going to stop it. And Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are a perfect example of this. They were the decaying brand of a supposedly moderate Democratic Party that will not and does not have the stones to actually fend off the far left brand of the Democratic Party that is the direction the Democratic Party is going to move. And that's the most interesting thing about what Hunter Biden has to say. All of these sort of revenge tactics on former Democrats and Democratic advisors, I'm here for that. It's fun. The most interesting thing about Hunter Biden and what he's saying is that he is saying the quiet part out loud. Joe Biden wanted open borders. Joe Biden likes third worldism. And that was the supposed moderate in the Democratic Party. Already coming up, Stephen Colbert is on his way out, and he's quite bitter about it. But first, I always assumed the rest of sleep was inevitable. Night after night, tossing, turning, waking up with the aching back, I'd convinced myself that's how sleep was supposed to be. And honestly, when I'm on the road, it still is. And then, at home, I've got Helix Sleep. Everything changed. It's truly been transformative for my sleep quality. I easily fall asleep in minutes, even when, there's a lot going on in my life. What makes Helix different, they're not just selling you some sort of random mattress. They match you with the perfect manual for your body and sleep style. Whether you're a side sleeper, back sleeper, or somewhere in between, they've got you covered. They make it so simple to get your best night's sleep every night. All you have to do is take their sleep quiz, get matched with a custom mattress based on your body type and sleep preferences. And trust me, when you find the right match, you'll wonder how you ever slept on anything else. The process is super simple. Just go on their website. I did that. And I told them exactly how I sleep. The mattress came, made just for me. Everything else in your life is personalized. Why not the thing you're spending 8 hours a night on? Helix is offering an incredible sale for my listeners right now. Visit helixsleep.com/men. Get 27% off site-wide. It's helixsleep.com/men for 27% off site-wide. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. Again, just visit helixsleep.com/men for this exclusive offer. Also, when budgets are stretched thin, Kickoff offers a smart cap for genuine credit building without the burden of costly credit card balances. No credit checks required, no interest charges, only $5 monthly, and it can actually boost your score quickly. With clear, budget-friendly plans beginning at only $5 a month, no surprise charges, and 0 interest rates, Kickoff helps you win big on the credit front. It's straightforward. Make timely payments, credit agencies notice positive habits, and your credit can improve very quickly. Users with credit under 600 grew an average of 84 points in their first year with on-time payments. Plus, with over 1 million users and hundreds of thousands of positive reviews, there's a reason why Kickoff is the #1 credit builder on the App Store. Producer Jake has mentioned it's very easy to get signed up. It's very easy to process. Sign up in minutes from your phone, no credit check, cancel anytime. Start building credit with Kickoff today. You can get your first month for as little as $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/Shapiro today. That's Kickoff without the C. At KIKOFF.com/Shapiro. Must sign up via getkickoff.com/Shapiro to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only. Subject to approval. Offer subject to change. Average first-year credit score impact of plus 84 points. Vantage score 3.0 between January 2023 and January 2024 for Kickoff credit account users who started with a score below 600, who paid on time, and who had no delinquencies or collections added to their credit profile during the period. Late payments may negatively impact your credit score. Individual results may vary. Okay, meanwhile, the fallout from the Stephen Colbert firing continues. Stephen Colbert shed extremely salty tears yesterday on CBS, and the only way you're going to hear about it is on this show. No one actually watches Stephen Colbert's show. And he launched into the person who's been paying him $15-20 million a year.
Over the weekend, somebody at CBS followed up their gracious press release with a gracious anonymous leak saying they pulled the plug on our show because of losses pegged between $40 million and $50 million a year. 40 million is a big number. I could see us losing $24 million, but where would Paramount have possibly spent the other $16 million? Oh, yeah. I'll call you like that. Still, that's still a lot of money. I mean, where does the Late Show rank? Jim, what other companies lost that kind of money last year? Red Lobster? Damn it, I told them we should stop offering the audience unlimited shrimp. Maya, take it away. Take it away.
There's no laugh anywhere inside, anywhere there, and they're still wondering why Stephen Colbert was canceled. I love the fact that he can't even deny that his show lost that much money. He has to somehow just yell at his employer for paying a settlement with President Trump over the 60 Minutes botchery with Kamala Harris. Colbert then spent some time telling President Trump to go F himself, which of course is exactly how Stephen Colbert brought himself to this point. He turned into late-night televangelism for left-wing nonsense. That is how. There has yet to be it is a Sahara desert of laughs over at the Stephen Colbert Show, which is why he was canceled. Here is some more not laughing like.
With those numbers, I gotta say, it makes sense we'd be canceled. I get it, guys. And thanks again. Okay, thanks again to the network. In a completely unrelated story, on Friday, Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings." How dare you, sir? Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism?
God, he is so funny. He is so funny. He is so unfunny. It's amazing how unfunny he is. That guy held down a late night slot for several years in real life. That's crazy. Well, one of the people who's very upset about this was, of course, Stephen Colbert's original mentor, Jon Stewart. I'm old enough to remember when Stephen Colbert was funny, and the answer is when he was a correspondent for Jon Stewart, and then he stopped being funny. Well, Jon Stewart was very upset about this as well. He came to defend his friend. I will note again that one of the funniest things about Jon Stewart is his age. So Jon Stewart is currently 62 years old, and he's still cosplaying as a cynical 33-year-old. Here we go.
Shows that say something, shows that take a stand, shows that are unafraid, and not to, believe me, this is not a, we speak truth to power. We don't. We speak opinions to television cameras. But we try every night. And if you believe, as corporations or as networks, you can make yourselves so innocuous that you can serve a rule so flavorless that you will never again be on the Boy King's radar. Why will anyone watch you and you are wrong?
Again, where are the laughs? And the answer is you became hectoring scolding. That is the reason why the failure is occurring, is the hectoring scolding. There's nothing funny or interesting about any of this. You can blame that on Donald Trump, but the reality is you guys got in your own heads over Donald Trump, and there was nothing you could do about it, and all the humor left your body the minute that happened. Okay, meanwhile, with the Democrats in disarray, they are trying to hone in again on the Epstein case. They just keep honing in on the Epstein case as though there's tons more to find. And so the Democrats have been trying to force votes on Epstein in the House. The House Republicans are saying, listen, just give the DOJ time or the AP time to release what it is that they can. This idea that Congress has to pass some sort of resolution to pry the Epstein files free. First of all, an enormous number of the Epstein files are under court seal. So you actually have to apply for a court release. Second of all, there are FBI procedures and protocols before you simply release stuff into the public arena. The Democrats know this. The Democrats don't care about the Epstein stuff. They don't care about this at all. It is a completely cynical play by the Democrats. This is the point that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is making.
The administration has the space to do what it is doing.
So no vote on this resolution from Congress.
No.
Yeah, again, the reason that Speaker Johnson is doing this is basically he is saying that the administration is going to release what it is going to release. The idea there's some sort of massive cover-up is a botchery. Again, that botchery should be laid at the hands of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, who went out there and claimed that there was all this material that led to a particular conclusion and then dropped the news that actually that conclusion was wrong and the material did not lead there in the first place. Representative Ralph Norman and members of the House Rules Committee is accusing Democrats of grandstanding and says Republicans refuse to give the minority party an endless microphone. Steve Scalise, who is the House Majority Whip, he says, at the end of the day, Democrats are yelling and screaming. They spent 4 years covering up for Epstein. And, at least President Trump in the court is right now trying to get documents released. I really think you're going to see, hopefully, a lot unsealed from that. And then we've got some other options as well. In fact, if you're worried about the Trump administration not taking the Epstein file stuff seriously, then why is the Deputy AG seeking a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, according to Axios? Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche announced today he is seeking a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. Blanche said in a social media post, Pam Bondi instructed him to contact Maxwell's team, which he has done. He intends to meet with Maxwell soon. He said no one is above the law, no lead is off limits. Now, remember, the FBI and the DOJ, they have already reviewed all of this material. It is highly unlikely that Ghislaine Maxwell is going to say anything now that she hasn't said before, at least that has any sort of credibility. Now, she is a sex criminal. You should remember this. And so it is quite plausible that she is now going to start offering all sorts of unspecified or unverifiable allegations in order to muddy the waters. This is one of the problems of talking to criminals. They tend to be criminals. However, is it worthwhile to talk with her? Sure. First of all, I assume there were many interviews with Ghislaine Maxwell before her trial. Ghislaine said in a statement that
that would have been nice.
by a faith nor from the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. Blanche added, the FBI and DOJ's joint statement said earlier this month regarding Epstein, quote, remains as accurate today as when it was written. He said President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and DOJ will hear what she has to say. Her attorney, of course, has said that discussions are underway and that Ghislaine will always testify truthfully, and added, we are grateful to President Trump for his commitment to uncovering the truth in this case. Now, again, Maxwell is trying to wiggle her way free of all of the charges that were filed against her. She was found guilty in 2021 of sex trafficking and other charges, is currently serving a 20-year prison sentence in the state of Florida. There have even been calls to free her. And Ghislaine Maxwell knows this. Ghislaine Maxwell for sure knows that if she can offer enough sort of bait, it's possible that there will be people who call for her release. That she will be the great heroine of the story somehow, despite having been Epstein's girlfriend who was convicted of sex trafficking on behalf of Epstein.
Sad day.
And criminals are very good at suckering people, and this is just another example of that. Okay, so Democrats, of course, are pushing this incredibly hard. What's fascinating is which Republicans are also pushing this incredibly hard. Because the question there is, what is the agenda? Do they actually believe Trump is complicit in a cover-up? If so, they should just say so out loud. This is the part that nobody will ask them. Do they think Donald Trump is covering the Epstein stuff up? If they think Donald Trump is covering the Epstein stuff up, will someone not ask them? I'm asking right now. I'm asking Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, if you think Donald Trump is covering up the Epstein stuff, what is it that you think he is covering up and why? Can you please just explain it? Seriously. You're the ones making the claim a cover-up is going on of such utter epic proportions that there must be a congressional resolution to pry the files out of these hands. Thomas Massie was walking onto the House floor with a binder labeled the Epstein Files Phase 2 and the bill number of a resolution he is co-sponsoring with Gadfly Ro Khanna, who's attempting to get attention, obviously, for a 2028 run. Massie said the Epstein bill resolution is non-binding, so it's kind of fake. The resolution I have with Khanna would be binding on the president. So what is it that he thinks that Trump is hiding? And why, if you are a loyal Trumpist Republican, somebody who believes the president ought to succeed, are you doing this? Why are you fostering a conspiracy theory about Trump? Forget about Epstein. A conspiracy theory about a Trump cover-up that Democrats are currently pushing for political gain. That is the thing that is happening right now. Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing the same thing. She put out a tweet. If you tell the base of people who support you of deep state treasonous crimes, election interference, blackmail, and rich, powerful, elite, evil cabals, you must take down every enemy of the people. If not, the base will turn and there's no going back. Dangling bits of red meat no longer satisfied. They want the whole steak dinner and will accept nothing else. Okay, fine. So why do you think he's not giving you the so-called steak dinner, Representative Greene? Really, like, what is your theory of the case? I would love to hear your theory of the case. Okay, let's be clear again on what pseudo-MAGA is doing here. I'm calling them pseudo-MAGA because Trump is the decider of MAGA. He is the person who created MAGA. He's the builder of MAGA. He's the definer of MAGA. Pseudo-MAGA are people who claim to speak on behalf of the MAGA movement, who represent a tiny sliver of the people who voted for Donald Trump. What are they actually attempting to do? What they are actually attempting to do, again, is seize control of the supposed MAGA movement from the only person who founded it and created it, Donald J. Trump. That is what is happening right now. They don't like Trump's policy in the Middle East. They don't like Trump's policy on Ukraine. They don't like some of Trump's domestic policy. And so what they are attempting to do is shift allegiances away from Trump and to some sort of bizarre agglomeration of isolationism and gigantic government subsidization scheme. I mean, Massie is on the isolationist side. He's not on the giant government spending side. Greene seems to be on the side of both. But whatever the case is, there's clearly an attempt to attack Trump here. Why the attacks on Trump? That's the question I'm asking. Go after Epstein all you want. That's fine. But you are accusing Trump of a cover-up. So if you're accusing Trump of a cover-up, the question is, why are you... What's the theory? Or is it a cynical play to attempt to drive down Trump's favorables and seize control of the movement that he built? Because that's what it looks a lot like. That's my theory of why you are doing what you are doing. Because I don't believe you that you are doing this in the name of quote-unquote transparency. Because if you were doing this in the name of quote-unquote transparency, then presumably when House Republicans were in control, because they've been in control of the House for a bit here, you would have been fostering resolutions on the release of Epstein files under Joe Biden, which I don't recall you doing. Beyond that, again, why are you... The argument you're making is that Trump and team are covering up the Epstein stuff. If you are joining... If you find yourself on the same side as Ro Khanna on this issue, I'm just wondering why exactly we should consider you loyal members of MAGA if this is indeed about supposed loyalty to MAGA, which is what Taylor Greene is making it all about. Alrighty, in just 1 second, I want to get into a couple of major criminal cases that are actually quite fascinating because they underscore why MAGA is popular and why there is a feeling abroad in the United States that there's a movement to free criminals from prison. Alrighty, meanwhile, a couple of stories about criminal cases that really underscore why the MAGA movement exists. So, a federal judge has now sentenced former Louisville, Kentucky police detective Brett Hankison to nearly 3 years in prison for his role in the botched 2020 raid during which Breonna Taylor was fatally shot. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Hankison was convicted in 2024 of civil rights abuse after blindly firing 10 shots through Taylor's home during the raid. His shots did not strike Taylor. They did not strike any of the neighbors. He had faced a maximum of life in prison. Okay, so the Justice Department under President Trump asked for a one-day prison sentence, basically saying this conviction is bull and he never should have been convicted in the first place. Instead, the U.S. District Court Judge, Rebecca Grady Jennings, sentenced him to 33 months. Now, again, that is less than the guidelines sentencing range, but it is a reflection of how insane our criminal justice system became in the aftermath of Black Lives Matter summer that Hankison was ever convicted in the first place. For those who don't remember the Breonna Taylor case, basically, the Breonna Taylor case was about a 26-year-old emergency medical technician who was in an apartment with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend believed the police were intruders because there was a no-knock warrant that was issued. They did, in fact, knock at the door because there was suspicion that drug activity was going on from this apartment. They knocked. The boyfriend fired a shot with a handgun through the door, hitting one of the officers in the leg, and then the police responded by firing more than 30 rounds, several of which hit and killed Taylor. Hankison did not fire any of the shots that killed Breonna Taylor. Did not fire any of those shots. So what was the conviction on the basis of? Well, actually, he was indicted on state charges for felony wanton endangerment in 2020 and was acquitted. And the federal government under Joe Biden brought a civil rights violation case against this police officer, Brett Hankison, under Section 242 of Title 18, which is depriving a person of their rights under the color of law. Okay, now, typically, you have to willfully do that. That is like if you arrest somebody while you're a cop and you know that that person is innocent and you arrest them and then you abuse them. That is a civil rights violation under Section 242 of Title 18. There has to be a willfulness component here. The DOJ's original statement on the conviction of Brett Hankison suggested, according to Attorney General Merrick Garland, today, Brett Hankison was found guilty by a jury of his peers for willfully depriving Breonna Taylor of her constitutional rights. His use of deadly force was unlawful and put Ms. Taylor in harm's way. This verdict is an important step toward accountability for the violation of Breonna Taylor's civil rights, but justice for the loss of Ms. Taylor is a task that exceeds human capacity. So I asked our friends over at Perplexity, our friends and sponsors, aside from Brett Hankison, are there any other prior cases of 18 U.S.C. 242 being used to convict a police officer for recklessly firing at a suspect during a situation in which officers were lawfully present and being fired upon at the time? And Perplexity notes that courts have recognized reckless disregard of a constitutional right, which is the question here, can meet the willingness requirement in some contexts, but this is not always uniformly applied. And then it cites several cases, Perplexity, in which there was no actual use of 18 U.S. Code 242 to prosecute. And that includes, for example, the Amadou Diallo case, in which officers fired 41 shots at an unarmed individual believing he was a threat. Prosecutors concluded there was insufficient evidence of specific intent to violate rights, so no civil rights violation there. Kent State shooting, where National Guardsmen fired into the crowd after being surrounded and pelted with rocks. The court held that there was no willful intent necessary to fulfill 18 U.S. Code 242. In U.S. versus Bradley, an officer fired at a fleeing suspect after a misunderstood traffic incident. And a conviction under 242 was upheld on the theory of reckless disregard of rights, but that situation did not include the officers being fired upon. In fact, says Perplexity, a review of available legal analyses and commentaries reveal that prior to cases like Brett Hankison's, it is extremely rare, if not unprecedented, for federal prosecutors to secure a 242 conviction against an officer for recklessly firing at a suspect during an incident where officers were lawfully present, officers were themselves under fire, and the conviction was based on reckless gunfire, not sexual misconduct, theft, or anything else. There appear to be no documented cases, none, before Brett Hankison, where an officer was convicted under 18 U.S. Code 242, specifically for recklessly firing at a suspect during a lawful police operation where officers were actively being fired upon. Okay, that's how insane this case was. So again, according to the evidence of the trial, officers knocked on Taylor's doors. A no-knock warrant, but they knocked. There's a major contention at the trial originally that there was no knock. There was a knock. They knocked on the door. They announced themselves as the cops. No one answered the door. The officers saw no indication anyone in the home was awake or had heard the announcement because there was no response. They rammed the door open. Taylor's boyfriend, believing that they were intruders, even though they had clearly announced themselves, fired his handgun at the officers, and then they fired back. And when they fired back, he had put Breonna Taylor in harm's way, and Breonna Taylor was killed. Hankison, who was convicted, was not one of the officers who fired from the doorway. He He fired separately from the side of the building through a sliding glass door and a bedroom window, both of which were covered with closed blinds and curtains. Evidence shows that many of the shots passed through Taylor's apartment and didn't hit anybody else. So this person ended up being convicted by the Joe Biden DOJ. It's an absurd case. An absurd case. I've never even heard of a case in which an officer was convicted of a civil rights violation for firing during an actual firefight with a suspect in which officers were lawfully present and the alleged victims in the neighboring apartments were not hit. Where's the willfulness component of this? And the answer is it didn't exist, but it reminds you of exactly how insane our entire law enforcement system went in the aftermath of Black Lives Summer, which is why MAGA existed. It is why the second phase of MAGA existed. It was because of stuff like that. Meanwhile, the left's dedication to letting truly awful criminals out of prison continues apace. One of the big stories that is breaking today is that a man who was convicted in the murder of a 6-year-old first grader named Eitan Paz is now going to have to be retried or released according to an appeals court. According to the Wall Street Journal, a New York federal appellate court overturned the conviction of the man found guilty in the 1979 kidnapping and killing of 6-year-old Eitan Paz, bringing back to the spotlight a case that drew national attention and changed the way missing children cases are handled. Pedro Hernandez is a former bodega store worker who was convicted and sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Why? Well, in 2017, he confessed to police he lured Eitan into the store's basement, strangled him, and disposed of the body back in 1979. The reason this was such a big case at the time is because this is the first child ever to appear on those missing milk cartons. On Monday, a 3-judge panel for the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled the jury from Hernandez's trial received instructions that would have unquestionably impacted its deliberations. So, what exactly happened? Well, the story is this. Eitan, a first grader, disappeared while walking alone for the first time to his school bus stop in the Manhattan neighborhood of Soho on the morning of May 25, 1979, and he was never found. He became one of the first missing kids to appear on a milk carton. May 25th, which is when he was abducted, is now known as National Missing Children's Day. 3 decades later, in 2012, police arrived at the New Jersey home of Hernandez following a tip from his own brother-in-law. Hernandez confessed to police after about 7 hours of questioning without being given his Miranda warnings, which informed suspects about their rights, such as the right to a lawyer. According to Monday's ruling, immediately afterwards, Hernandez signed a Miranda waiver, and detectives asked him to, quote, tell us again exactly what you just told us before. So Hernandez's defense lawyers argued he had given a false confession, and it was because of the police, his mental illness, his low IQ. During questioning, he took his medication, including a fentanyl patch. He told the police he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, other mental illnesses. His first trial was in 2015, mistrial. Second trial ended in February 2017 with a unanimous guilty verdict on charges of murder and kidnapping. So what was the issue here? Well, the issue was that during the second trial, the jury sent the judge a few different notes focused on the confessions. In the third one, the jury asked, if it found Hernandez's confession without the Miranda warning was not voluntary, would later confessions have to be disregarded? The judge told the jury the answer is no, and so that is wrong. That is wrong as a matter of law. However, the basic question here is whether Hernandez was pressured into his original confession or whether he was just talking to the cops. This has happened in prior cases, and the Supreme Court has ruled on this. If the cops come to your house and you confess to a crime, and they haven't read you your Miranda rights yet, and then they read you your Miranda rights, and then you reconfess to the crime, if you did the original confession voluntarily, that's not a problem. So that was the question in this particular case. The notion that he was compelled to testify to the cops without his Miranda warnings, and then later they read him the Miranda warnings and had him re-up, and that was one of the issues in the trial, but it's not clear that the jury actually found that that's what was going on. Beyond that, we should point out that the original Miranda ruling is deeply flawed. The original Miranda ruling, which suggests that the only way to enforce the Fifth Amendment is to let criminals out of prison for having gun crimes, is wrong. There are many other ways you can punish officers for failing to take account of the rights of suspects. But letting criminals wander the streets because the officers did a bad job questioning the suspect turns out is a terrible idea. One way that you could do this would be to, for example, fire officers who are found to have committed violations of the law in their questioning, to fine police departments. There are lots of things you could do. Miranda is a very, very badly decided decision by the Supreme Court. But even putting that aside, the bottom line is that it is this sort of case that leads people to believe in the law and order aspect of the MAGA platform, which is very real. Again, it's insane this person is going to be released onto the streets, presumably, barring some sort of serious retrial. Meanwhile, in other law enforcement news, the Trump administration on Monday released more than 230,000 pages of documents on the assassination of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. This had been one of the pledges of President Trump during the campaign, was to release a lot of information on, for example, the RFK assassination, the JFK assassination, MLK, and also Epstein. And the big issue with Epstein is that there are still people who are alive and kicking who are presumably mentioning the Epstein files without criminal evidence that they actually did anything criminally wrong. Right? That is one of the things the FBI has to go through in determining what it can release, what it should release, and all the rest. The same thing really does not apply to the MLK assassination. Apparently, the family of MLK actually did not want some of the files released because they make MLK look not wonderful, because a lot of those files are not specifically about the assassination, they're about MLK's personal life, which, as biographers have noted, was quite troubled. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the American people deserve answers after the horrific assassination of one of our nation's great leaders. President Trump signed an executive order in January to release the documents. Unlike the JFK documents, Dr. King's files had never been digitized, and they sat collecting dust in facilities across the federal government for decades, according to Tulsi Gabbard's office. Among the files, the office said, were pages related to King's assassin James Earl Ray, including that Ray's former cellmate stated he discussed an alleged assassination plot with Ray. King's two surviving children, Martin Luther King Jr. III and Bernice A. King, asked those looking through the documents to do so with empathy, restraint, and respect for our family's continued grief. Again, the thing they're concerned about is that the FBI, which again was being run by J. Edgar Hoover at the time, had, quote, worked to discredit, dismantle, and destroy their father's reputation. Again, they have a theory that Ray was not the person who shot their father. All the evidence suggests that Ray shot Martin Luther King Jr. That is what the evidence suggests. The administration clearly is attempting to release as much as it can. And yes, of course, this has to do with a recommitment to transparency from the Trump administration in the aftermath of the Epstein hubbub. There's no question that that's one of the things that is happening here. But to suggest that this is some sort of fundamental failure by the Trump administration, that they don't have to go through different procedures and protocols with regard to a half-century-old file, as opposed to stuff that is currently ongoing with living people, that, of course, is incredibly silly. And meanwhile, remember that time that we were told that the Trump administration was going to unleash the military in LA, fascists to take over, President Trump declaring himself emperor, and all the rest? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, hundreds of Marines who were deployed to LA last month during protests over immigration enforcement will now withdraw from the city, according to the Pentagon. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has directed the redeployment of around 700 Marines from LA, according to Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell. So much for the idea that the federal government is taking over LA, which was, of course, the big complaint of everybody ranging from Governor Gavin Newsom to Senator Alex Padilla of Los Angeles and California. The federal government said it deployed hundreds of Marines to LA to protect federal buildings in June. They have now withdrawn those Marines. Karen Bass then declared victory as though she was some sort of guerrilla insurgent. Quote, LA stands with our troops, which is why we are glad they are leaving. Weird take. Hot take. The Pentagon estimated their deployment would cost at least $134 million. And again, they were put there in order to defend ICE facilities from outside attack from rioters, which wouldn't have been necessary except for all of the insanity of a left wing dedicated to the proposition that open borders are the way America ought to do business. And meanwhile, in the Senate, John Thune is sort of stuck because Congress would like to adjourn. They would like to get to their summer recess. They want to go back, talk with their constituents, and also, yes, go on summer vacation. President Trump is saying you guys should stay in session until you actually approve some of my nominees. Senate Majority Leader Thune presumably would like to push that forward. He said, we're thinking about it. That's what he told Axios on Monday about President Trump's call to cancel all or part of the August break. He says we want to get as many noms through the pipeline as we can. But he said people are accustomed to going back. This is the time of year when they go back and interact with their constituents and talk about some of the things that we've gotten done.
An ally has been slain.
So, again, leadership would like for there to be an adjournment, obviously. President Trump would like for his nominees to get through. Democrats have been holding up those nominees in extraordinary ways. Meanwhile, in the Democratic Party, we were talking a little bit earlier about the 2028 nomination process. There are a lot of Democrats, and when I say a lot, I mean 7, who are very interested in Pete Buttigieg as the 2028 nominee. I fail to understand precisely why. Aside from being a gay mayor of South Bend, Indiana, where he wasn't particularly good at his job, then running for president where he got shellacked, and then becoming a terrible Secretary of Transportation, what are his sterling credentials that make people so interested in Pete Buttigieg? Well, now there's a story from the New York Post that certainly throws a crimp into his plans for a presidential run in 2028. According to the New York Post, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg failed to replace outdated air traffic control systems while in office. Instead, his agency shelled out tens of billions of dollars on a DEI agenda, according to federal spending records and airline industry insiders. In one meeting, Buttigieg, told industry executives air traffic control upgrades would just allow them to fly more planes, and so why would that be in his interest? That's a weird take. Why would it be in the interest of the Department of Transportation to facilitate the flying of more planes? I feel like that's the actual job. But apparently Buttigieg didn't think that was the job. What his department was really interested in was handing out hundreds of diversity, equity, and inclusion grants, totaling more than $80 billion over 4 years, at least half of the DOT's entire budget for a typical fiscal year. That's insane. That's totally crazy. He was definitely pushing an agenda, an air industry official said, noting that the transportation secretary had little to no interest and took definitely zero action toward air traffic control modernization. So basically, instead of spending any money on the stuff that you're supposed to do at the DOT, he yelled at the airlines, didn't visit wreck sites, and spent all of the money on DEI nonsense. The air industry official said at first the DOT and he were reluctant to say there was an air traffic controller shortage or that the shortage had anything to do with flight delays or flight cancellations. Now, spokesperson for Buttigieg rejects the claims and points to increased air traffic controller hiring and software changes. But as everyone knows, things did not get markedly better under Secretary Buttigieg. The DOT's Bureau of Transportation statistics show most flight cancellations, 54.3%, were caused by weather. 1/3, 34.7%, were attributable to air carriers. 10% were due to failures in the national aviation system. 80% of flights were on time. 7% of the delays were due to air carriers. 7% late arriving aircraft. 5% to the aviation system. So, he's trying to argue that actually he spent the money correctly, that it actually went to facilitate the hiring of the FAA and all of the rest. However, in an urgent letter to Buttigieg's DOT in April 2024, according to the Post, Air Industry Trade Association officials warned at the current rate of their hiring, it could take as long as 90 years for the FAA to reach its targeted staffing levels in some of the critical New York air traffic control centers. At the same time, the focus of the department under Buttigieg also shifted, with roughly 400 DEI-related grants approved, according to a review of federal spending between 2021 and 2024. Just 60 grants for diversity, equity, or inclusion initiatives were approved during the previous administration. So 60 grants compared to 400 grants under Buttigieg. Biden's $1.2 trillion infrastructure law in 2021 provided a lot of the funding, but again, the spending was out of control. So Buttigieg would yell at the airlines while simultaneously spending billions of dollars on DEI initiatives. This is what you're going to run, Democrats? This right here? It's a strange move. Cotton, we'll see how it works out for them. Alrighty, folks, the show continues for our members right now. We'll hop into the mailbag and take some of your questions. Remember, in order to watch, you have to be a member. If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us. Ton coming up on today's show. A series of lies the media are telling to undermine President Trump. One story about illegal immigration went totally viral and turned out to be totally untrue. Updates on the Khalil story. Remember that student the Trump administration tried to deport? Well, he just exposed himself, pantsed himself on CNN last night. But first, we are celebrating a decade of the Daily Wire. That's 10 years of saying the quiet part out loud and building something that actually matters, something the left can't cancel or burn down. And we're not slowing down. We are scaling up with new talent like Isabel Brown and her new show premiering this fall. New docs like Journey to the UFC, the Joe Pyfer story premiering Friday on Daily Wire Plus. And here's the thing. Members get all of it first. The drops, the trailers, the truth uncensored. Plus, you get to connect with a community that doesn't think biology is optional. Celebrate 10 years with us. Join now at dailywireplus.com. Alrighty, folks, so we obviously live in an age of narrative. Narrative matters more than the fact. And many of the people who know that are in the media. Many of them are opponents of Donald Trump's agenda. And that means that anytime President Trump tries to forward his agenda, he may face down actual false stories that are promulgated by that media that are antithetical to his actual agenda item. The latest example is this insane example that has been totally undercovered but is indicative of the way that so many in the media actually cover these stories. They don't actually have personal knowledge of the story. They just report out a story, and it turns out the story is not true. So, according to the UK Guardian, this was reported on Sunday. An 82-year-old man in Pennsylvania was secretly deported to Guatemala after visiting an immigration office last month to replace his lost green card, according to his family, who said they have not heard from him since and were initially told he was dead. According to Morning Call, which first reported the story, longtime Allentown resident Luis Leon, who was granted political asylum in the United States in 1987 after being tortured under the regime of the Chilean dictator Augusto Pinochet, lost his wallet containing the physical card that confirmed his legal residency, so he and his wife booked an appointment to get it replaced. When he arrived at the office on June 20th, however, he was handcuffed by 2 ICE officers who led him away from his wife without explanation, she said. She said she herself was kept in the building for 10 hours until relatives picked her up. And then they tried to find him, and they couldn't figure it out where he went. And then, on July 9th, according to Leon's granddaughter, the same woman called them again, claiming that Leon had died. An immigration lawyer supposedly called claiming that Leon had died. A week later, they discovered from a relative in Chile, Leon was alive after all, but now in a hospital in Guatemala, a country to which he has no connection. Okay, so this was widely reported. Okay, this was reported by a wide variety of left-wing sources, ranging from The Hill, to Newsweek, to The Guardian. It went totally viral on X because, of course, the left is looking for a case of a blatant mistreatment of an innocent person in order to discredit President Trump's entire immigration agenda, which remains incredibly popular. In fact, President Trump's success on the immigration agenda is so complete that the immigration issue is dropping off people's radar as a chief issue. He was elected to clean up the border, and he did it so unbelievably quickly that people are forgetting that he even did it. Now, President Trump said yesterday that no people came in last month. 0. That's how quickly he has solved this crisis. Here's President Trump yesterday.
We have the strongest border anywhere in the world now. Maybe even stronger than your border, if you can believe it. We have no people came in last month. 0, which is pretty amazing. I'm not even sure I can believe that. But liberals are the ones that do that calculation. So, but we had no people come in. A year ago, we had hundreds of thousands of people come in. Hundreds of thousands of people.
Well, because Trump has been so successful on this issue, the left has been looking for some sort of horror story to tell. And so they've been telling horror story after horror story. Something terrible is happening at Alligator Alcatraz. The person who was deported as a suspect in MS-13 wasn't, in fact, an MS-13 suspect. He was, in fact, an innocent Maryland father. It turns out that wasn't true either. Well, this story about the 82-year-old Chilean man deported for trying to renew his green card or get a fresh green card because he lost his old one, it turns out it's complete bunk. The Department of Homeland Security, according to Newsweek, has denied reports an 82-year-old Chilean man was deported from the United States to Guatemala after losing his green card. Like, it's just not true. The DHS denied it as completely false. Apparently, again, his family had told that paper Morning Call they couldn't locate him and he died, and then he turned up in Guatemala. A DHS statement issued to Newsweek late on Monday said, quote, the DHS set the record straight on misleading and false reporting that ICE secretly deported a so-called Allentown grandfather in Guatemala, additionally reporting claims he died in ICE custody. The DHS said the article had been published without any fact from DHS about major allegations made against law enforcement. The department's statement said, quote, the family of the individual allegedly told reporters he was handcuffed and taken by federal officers at a green card appointment in Philadelphia. This claim is completely false. There's no record of the man appearing at any green card appointment in or around the area of Philadelphia on June 20th. Furthermore, says DHS, ICE has not deported Luis Leon, a Chilean national, to Guatemala. ICE's only record of this individual entering the United States is in 2015 from Chile under the visa waiver program. So the idea that he entered in 87 as a refugee from Pinochet is not even true. According to reporting by the Associated Press, the Guatemalan Institute of Migration, which coordinates with ICE on all deportations to Guatemala, claims they have not received anyone matching the name, age, or nationality of Luis Leon back into Guatemala. According to the report, says the DHS, the family alleges a woman claiming to be an immigration lawyer called and offered to help them, but did not disclose how she knew about the case. The family claims this individual also told them Leon died in ICE custody. DHS Assistant Secretary Christopher McLaughlin said ICE never arrested or deported any Luis Leon to Guatemala, nor does ICE disappear from it. This is a categorical lie being peddled to demonize ICE agents who are already facing an 830% increase in assaults against them. So again, why is this story important? This story is important because it demonstrates how information flows in the modern world, especially in the online world, where this went totally viral on X. And why? Why does it work this way? Because X is a machine built for instantaneous response. Mark Twain famously suggested that a lie has its chance to make its way all the way around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on in the morning. That was somewhat true when Mark Twain was saying that back in the late 19th century. But it is much more true now when the online world means that lies are promulgated at an extraordinary rate, a truly extraordinary rate. And it's true over and over and over again. All right, folks, tons coming up on the show. Mahmoud Khalil, you remember him? Trump tried to deport him, and then the court said, no. He's sort of a moderate. He's not pro-terrorist or anything. We have some updates, plus Epstein files updates, plus President Trump cutting some pretty interesting trade deals. First, how many times have we told someone, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? That's great advice for most things. It is not so much great advice for a cell phone. Over time, the battery life fades, the processor can't keep up. It's fallen in the toilet. One time. Fortunately, thanks to Pure Talk, your cell phone is something you can replace without feeling guilty. When you switch to Pure Talk this month, they're going to give you a Samsung Galaxy A36 for free with a $35 qualifying plan. Just $35 a month for talk, text, data, and a free Samsung phone with scratch-resistant Gorilla Glass and battery that lasts all day long, all on America's most dependable 5G. We use Pure Talk. They're the other things with business calls. The people in business use it as well. Coverage is excellent. Price is low. What are you waiting for exactly? Supporting companies like Pure Talk is a good thing. You win by cutting your cell phone bill in half, and they win by hiring more Americans and helping more veterans. Make the switch in as little as puretalk.com/Shapiro. Get your free phone today. Again, it's puretalk.com/Shapiro to switch to my wireless company, America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Also, the administration is doing an awful lot of good, positive work on the economy, but it's kind of tough for them to take your personal finances into account when they're trying to do all of that. That's something you have to control. That's why I recently re-upped on my gold purchases from Birch Gold. Over the past 12 months, gold's value has surged by 40%, driven by central banks purchasing record quantities and global instability reaching really high levels. Luckily, Birch Gold has made owning physical gold remarkably straightforward, allowing you to easily convert existing retirement accounts like IRAs or 401ks into tax-sheltered gold IRAs or simply purchase gold for secure home storage. It's super easy. You call them up, ask all of your questions, and get the good advice. Do the sale. It didn't take me very much time at all, and I got all my questions answered. Just text my name, Ben, to 989898. Birch Gold will send you a free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, only useful information. With an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers, including me. Take control of protecting your savings today. Text the word Ben to 989898 to get started again. That's Ben to 989898. They are definitely the people you want to be in business with when you're buying gold. Check them out right now. Text the word Ben to 989898 to get started. Take, for example, the case of Mahmoud Khalil. So Mahmoud Khalil was freed by a court after the Trump administration tried to deport him. He was, of course, a person who had garnered a student visa under false pretenses. He got a student visa claiming that he was coming to the United States to study, when in fact he was coming to the United States in order to act as a professional agitator. He came to work with Students for Justice in Palestine and various other groups on the Columbia College campus, where he was going to promote wild anti-Semitism and pro-Hamas sentiment. And so Secretary of State Marco Rubio said, this is not what we are looking for in our immigrants. You're gone. And the court said, no. You can't do that. He's exercising his free speech rights. And Rubio said, well, hold up. We get to decide who comes in the country. We have the plenary power at state to decide whether someone is violating the edict. And we make the decision as to whether someone is of net benefit to the United States. And the entire media came to Khalil's defense, suggesting that Khalil was just, a normie student who had no support for terrorist groups. All the talk about him supporting terrorist groups, all of that was just false. He never would do something like that. He's just a normal left-wing guy who just really doesn't like what Israel is doing in Gaza. Well, he blew all of that up yesterday. He did an interview on CNN. Again, he's the hero of the left, Mahmoud Khalil. He did an interview on CNN where it turns out he says that the Trump administration is quote-unquote weaponizing anti-Semitism. He's not really anti-Semitic. He's not really a threat in any way. It's just that the Trump administration is using anti-Semitism as a way of throwing out people they don't like.
This is simply weaponization of anti-Semitism to silence the speech. And Wolf, as you've mentioned, I've been always, whether publicly or privately, against any form of discrimination and of racism, including anti-Semitism. But they want to use that as a smokescreen, so they can just like benefit from that unfortunately that like very hateful speech that's happening. So they can silence my speech. It's simple and clear.
He really hates anti-Semitism. He's a moderate, you see. And so the Trump administration was super wrong to try to deport him. Except later in the same exact interview, he was asked multiple times whether he condemned Hamas, a designated terrorist organization in the United States, for what they did on October 7th and beyond. And over again, he refused to denounce Hamas. Here's Mahmoud Khalil, supposed moderate, supposed victim of the Trump administration on matters of immigration, just saying the quiet part out loud, which is that he will not condemn Hamas.
Just to be clear here, though, do you specifically condemn Hamas, a designated terrorist organization in the United States, not just for their actions on October 7th?
I condemn the killing of all civilians, full stop. But what I don't want to get into is no, I am very clear with condemning all civilians. I'm very straight in my position in that part. But it's disingenuous to ask about condemning Hamas while Palestinians are the ones being starved now by Israel. It's not condemning October 6th, where 260 Palestinians were killed by Israel on before October 7. So I hate this selective outrage of condemnation.
Okay, so again, he's not going to condemn Hamas. Do you need people in the United States who don't condemn State Department labeled terrorist groups? Are those the kinds of people you need in the... That was Marco Rubio's entire case. That was the case of the Trump administration when they tried to deport him, is we don't need people who like Hamas in the country. It seems relatively inarguable. It's one thing if you're already a United States citizen, there's nothing you can do about it. Sure, you suck, but, lots of people suck in the United States and have terrible views in the United States. We don't get to kick you out for having terrible views in the United States if you are a citizen. However, if you lie about why you came to the country, you came here as a political agitator on behalf of terrorist organizations, well, at that point, we should probably kick you out. But remember, the entire media went along with the idea that he was a wounded innocent who was merely parroting the rhetoric of mainstream Democratic officials. That was never true. Go back to May 2024, when he was tussling with Columbia public safety officers trying to confiscate tents. Here's the footage. You can see him, he's walking around, he's getting into it. He seems like a wonderful, the kind of person we desperately need here in the United States. But it just goes to show you, that these narratives, they may go around very, very quickly, and then it takes a long time to debunk them, and by that time, it is just too late for the debunking to happen. And this is happening all over the world. It's not just true of the Trump administration immigration agenda, it's true all over the world. The claims that are currently being made by mainstream media, just parroting, for example, the Gaza Ministry of Defense, which is to say, Hamas, about Israel supposedly, for no reason, shooting people who are trying to get food from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Those are lies. It is not true. What is happening is that Hamas is infiltrating those lines, and they are literally shooting at the IDF soldiers, trying to draw fire in response. Israel is attempting to separate off Hamas terrorists from civilians. Hamas is literally killing people who are taking the aid from Israel because they wish to hijack the aid. In fact, there was a report just yesterday that Hamas may be going bankrupt because they can no longer steal the aid and then sell it back to the Palestinians at inflated prices, thus to fund their ongoing war machine. Okay, but that's not the only lie that is currently being told. Obviously, there's the generalized genocide lie, but one of the big lies that was told last week was this lie that extremist local Jewish West Bank residents had set fire to a 1,500-year-old church of St. George in the Palestinian village of Taiba. Now, this is part and parcel of a broader attempt right now by some to claim that Israel is targeting Christians, which is not true. They're doing this based on this false report, and also the lie that Israel purposefully targeted a church in the Gaza Strip. They did not purposefully target a church in the Gaza Strip. That would be a moral, intellectual, and strategic absurdity. What would generate that? Why would Israel purposefully target a church? Israel says it was an accident. Clearly, it was, in fact, an accident. But it's been run with by many of the people who are now trying to generate outsized pressure on Israel by claiming somehow that Israel is filled with people who hate Christians. Which is very strange, considering that Israel is literally the only place in the entire region where Christians can live safely and securely practicing their religion. The only one. The only one. So, they are linking that story up with another story suggesting that extremist Jews in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, set fire to this church in Tibet. Well, it turns out that that's not true either. It turns out that the press service of Israel did an independent investigation. And again, this report was spread so wide, there were American officials repeating it before investigating. Well, what actually happened? Well, it found that local Jewish residents were fighting the fire, that there was a fire nearby, and that local Jewish residents were going up there to fight the area near the church. But in case you don't believe me, here's actual footage of the church. It is made of rock. There are no burn marks. 1,500 years old. It doesn't have a roof because it hasn't had a roof for a long time. It's essentially an ancient site. Here is video of the site showing what it's like right now on the ground.
Here I am in the outskirts of the church. You can see the apse over here. And even on the outskirts or the outer walls, there are no signs of fire. I can't find any. So it doesn't look like the church has been burned down. But not far from the church, there was shrub that was most probably burnt in the fire. This happens all over Judea and Samaria. You can see that these stones would have stopped the fire. And I still believe it's important to find out who set the fire. So who has the interest to display this bonfire as the settlers burning down the church? Someone is behind this. The Jews are burning down the church. Someone has an interest for you to believe that.
Okay, now, the reality is that there is contemporaneous footage that is now showing young men from nearby farms running up the hill with fire extinguishing equipment, according to the Jerusalem Post, and reflective vests attempting to put out the flames.
This is so not the time.
So, again, this is just another one of these narratives that runs out of control. It runs out of control very, very quickly. And is spread on services like X that do a pretty terrible job of separating the wheat from the chaff in terms of what is true and what is false. And it is that exact thing that leads to wild distrust on every issue. It is very difficult to lock down the facts. And one of the things that I try to do on the show is to take enough time when a controversial claim is made to determine whether or not it is true. And so I might wait a few hours to determine what actually happened to a different claim, or even a couple of days in murky circumstances. But that is not what the internet favors. What the internet actually favors is immediate response, right now, without information. And if you wait, you're condemned for waiting. Because the idea is that if you wait, you must have some way or another. Whereas if you react and jump to your preferred conclusion that backs your narrative, somehow this means that you are more honest in some way. That is not true. It is not true. Waiting is frequently the best thing to do in unclear circumstances so as to allow time for the truth to arise. That is the thing that actually should matter. And again, you can speculate and theorize, but people aren't in the business anymore of even speculating or theorizing. They're not even clear that they are speculating or theorizing anymore on any topic. They simply jump to whatever conclusion is the most advantageous for their narrative and for their position, and then they insist that position is true regardless of the next set of facts that comes out. That is true across the political board. It also happens to be true with regard to, for example, the Epstein case. So Democrats continue to fan the flames on the Epstein case, suggesting, without evidence, that there is tons of evidence that is still out there that has yet to be uncovered by the Trump administration. Now, again, the Trump administration has an ongoing case in federal court asking for release on documentation in the Epstein case. Perhaps that will be released. Perhaps the judge will say it's under seal. We don't know. The Trump administration also has made clear at this point that there are no quote-unquote Epstein tapes of Epstein or anyone else having sex with children in the actual bedrooms, because those tapes are actually just child pornography. They have enough evidence